Hello, everyone, and welcome to Stoked, the ultimate Star Trek online podcast. My name is Chris.
My name is Jeremy.
Hey there, J-Man.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm great. I had a really fun weekend with playing around with the new TOS set.
Oh, yeah, and we're going to talk all about that coming up. But first, we have to say happy birthday to Leonard Nimoy.
Oh, yeah.
It's another original series actor birthday, and it's fitting that it's the first officer of the Enterprise when we're talking about original series sets today. Happy 80th birthday, Mr. Nimoy.
And live longer and prosper.
More.
Even more.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, the big story item this week is that the new original series bundle, which includes, at least for a limited time, includes the sets and uniforms. There's also a shuttle in there. And we're going to talk even more about interior functionality later on in the show when we get Al Rivera on from Cryptic. But before we jump to that, let's cover some of the highlights of the new TOS set.
Well, I think one of the things that stick out to people right off the bat is the lighting, the artwork, everything about this, and the sound effects, which add just that extra layer of just geeky goodness on top of all these great visuals. But I didn't notice anything. Maybe I'm not as nitpicky as some people out there. Did notice a few things wrong with it, but everything looked awesome.
It did look great, especially.
In fact, actually, my primary complaint is that my character doesn't look like he fits in the TOS universe.
I went and got myself that wraparound uniform and everything just so when I was walking around the bridge. I had some quibbles about the engineering section, because if you remember back from the show, there's a second level in the engineering section. There's also like these painted soccer ball pods that are on the floor. And there was, no. It was pointed out to me in the chat room, and I haven't gone back to double check this, but it was pointed out to me that stuff might have been added in the second season, and this is a first season engineering set.
You think we'll get another?
I don't know. I don't know. You know, so we should just say it. This is, if you break down the Atari points, it's about the equivalent of $17.50.
Yeah.
So it's not the cheapest thing, and it doesn't really add any functionality to the game.
In fact, none.
Not yet, at least. And maybe down the road we'll get.
And I would actually like to point out that some of the few functionality that you do have on your ship, like mission replay, might be hard to find on this because your ready room isn't right off the bridge on this set.
True. You do have to go a little farther.
Yeah.
But they did do a few little niceties. First of all, it does feel like it's the smallest interior set that we've gotten yet.
Yes.
You know? And also functional Jeffries tubes. I mean, can I get a what?
Not even just functional, but when you go into one, it's got its own little mini zone where you're in a Jeffries tube.
You're in the tube, and then what's great is you can choose to go to the engineering deck or the crew deck, so it's like a little mini hop and a jump. And it's funny because I walked by them and I thought, oh, that's great. I wish I could climb down that right now. Well, I'm going to run to the other side of the map for the turbo lift. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go walk up to it. And sure enough, you can use them. And slick little nice touch there. Also, there's another little nice touch that just got my nerd heart all warm. And that is the blast doors in the lounge room and things like that. They're functional blast doors.
Yeah. And
you can open them up and you can see out into space.
And that's also a great solution because when they first put out a tease, a concept build of the lounge.
There was a little controversy there.
Some folks complained about the fact that there were windows in there because there didn't seem to be during the actual show.
There weren't.
So now, if you don't want windows, just shut the blinds.
Well, and blast doors are a TOS canon thing. The shuttles have blast doors. There's other rooms in the ship of the Enterprise that have blast doors. And you were pointing out that in the pre-show prep that they didn't use force fields back then. So it actually is a functionality thing. Yeah, not for like containment and things like that.
Whereas meanwhile in like Next Generation and beyond, they're using emergency force fields for almost everything.
You know, it's funny. We opened up this morning our live stream. I opened up with like a kind of a famous Star Trek moment every Saturday. And this one was the moment in Voyager where the bridge section of the ship gets ripped off, and
from the Year of Hell.
Yeah, the end of Year of Hell, and Janeway's flying right into a ship, and she doesn't even have a view screen, just a force field. Well, no, we never saw anything like that in TOS, and they actually, if you look at diagrams of the ship, they had a Titanic-esque emergency bulkheads that they would go into place to seal the ship, and that was their solution for a breach, and so. Blast doors are not only a great solution for what you're talking about for the controversy, but a great solution just to fit in that universe. I'm loving this set, and I think if you're going to go this route, if you're going to start with the TOS set, you do that with the intention, in my opinion, if it works out, to build every single one that would make money.
Yeah, then a lot of people have been asking that now that they've got TOS, when are we going to get Next Generation? When are we going to get Voyager? I'm not so keen on those because we already have adaptations. I realize they're far from accurate, but we have a Galaxy-esque bridge.
Would you be up for me pulling the chat room and asking them yay or nay? Yay in the chat room, yay if you are a TOS fan, and nay if not necessarily not a fan, but you just haven't watched it much. Because I'm curious, I've done some questioning of our live chat, and it seems like the majority of and the emails we've gotten, they all seem to kind of be, I'm a TOS fan, but I don't watch it a lot. Boy, look at them go. There's there's a lot of yays in there. Okay, all right. There's more yays than I expected, because it seemed like our audience is not big into the original series as much. They're more DS9, Next Generation Voyager.
I think a lot of them fall into the same camp as me, where maybe we watched some reruns growing up as a kid, and we didn't dislike it or anything, but when Next Generation and Voyager and DS9 hit, those are when we became Trekkies.
Yeah. Yeah, and I kind of went back, and like I did just like what OC is doing here. He says, I'm watching it on Blu-ray now. And that's a great way to sort of catch up and things like that, and then you could enjoy this TOS set even more. Yeah. So I don't always give C-Store items the rubber stamp. Like I had some quibbles with the Prometheus.
And the Galaxy when it first came out.
Yeah, although I have them both.
I know.
I'm rubber stamping. This is a must-buy C-Store item.
I think so too, and I acknowledge that is a ridiculous statement because there is no functionality.
I disagree.
There's no reason to own this.
I disagree. The reason to own that interior set is the same reason that over to my side here I have a TOS phaser, and in my office I have like 15 starships. I mean, it's a toy. It's a collector type thing. There's an inherent personal value to me as a Star Trek fan to be able to relive that. I mean, I kind of had a moment walking down the hallway going, I can't believe I'm getting to do this at this level of detail, at this level of quality. I mean, there just hasn't been a point in video games before where I could enjoy a piece of Star Trek like this. So to me, it's worth the $17.
Well, and I still think it's worth it. I'm just acknowledging the fact that there's very little to do with it.
Yeah. Not at least yet. I'd love to see something. I'd love to see this stuff hit the Foundry, dude.
Oh, yeah.
You get this stuff in there. You get some time travel missions and things like that. And to be honest, I'm nervous. I'm nervous because this is a for-profit item, so it seems like it kind of goes against that to put it in the Foundry. And I know that,
but keep in mind that the Foundry already allows you to put NPCs in C-Store costumes and things like that. So there's a chance still that they might go the same route.
That's what I'm hoping. Right. I think first I would love to see like some of the assets from the latest round of weeklies make it to the Foundry, and then I would love to see this, and I'm ready to get my time travel on.
I do want to point out one more thing about the interior that I loved, and that may hint at some tech coming down the line. When you buy this set, all of your crew is walking around in TOS uniforms.
Yes. Yes.
Everybody on the ship. And there's several different variants of it. It's not all the same uniform like it currently is on standard interiors. You've got the wraparounds and the doctor uniforms with the short sleeves and different kinds of skirts and everything. So,
can we just take a moment? Sorry to interrupt, but sick bay was one of the best rooms in this, and
I loved it. Yeah.
They have a guy in that TOS uniform you're talking about sitting there, kind of looks like Dr. McCoy with the short sleeves.
Yeah, and he's sitting there behind the front desk there.
That because they did that with that uniform, that sold it for me right then and there. So yeah, you're right, dude. That the interiors, or I mean the crew uniforms, was a nice touch.
Yeah,
I like that. We also got, if I forget which bundle, if it comes as part of the bundle or not, but there's also the TOS shuttle now.
Yeah, it does come as part of the bundle. And I do want to mention again, this is a limited time, so if you're interested, buy it sooner than later.
It's called a Class F shuttle, which I think is a new class, but it seems to, in fact, we've got an awesome artwork in the show notes.
Yeah, we were given a new updated version. Some of you might have seen Spider Mitch's, Spider Mitch made a ship chart.
Spider Mitch.
What?
It's great.
Spider Mitch. So, but it's a great ship chart. It doesn't have the Type F on that, but we've confirmed that it's the same equivalent stats to the Runabout.
Yeah, you get 2 forward weapons, and you also get a BOF slot, which is really great. And then you get
3 consoles.
All 3 consoles.
One of each.
Yeah. So that's a cool little ship, and I checked it out. I liked it. I even threw my Riemann shields on there just to spice it up a bit, and that looked pretty great. But you know, it is kind of like flying a shoebox, so just be prepared for that. That's the truth. All right, let's move on to some stuff that's just kind of had some movement lately that I know is important to some of the hardcore people out there, especially people towards the end of the game.
Yeah.
Gozer made a post about some special task force changes.
Yeah, well, Terradome in specific. Yeah. Now, he also clarified his statements as saying that he's not officially working on special task forces yet. But he's still working on remastering.
I still get the impression, and I have not had a confirmation of this, but I get the impression that he's doing this in his personal time just to help people out.
I kind of get that impression as well.
Yeah.
But his statement on Terradome was that it needed some love. It had to be fixed because the alternative at this point was it was so far gone it needed to be taken offline.
Oh, take it out back.
And shot.
Yeah.
So instead he went in and, like we said, it seems to be on his own personal time because his primary project is the remastering.
Yeah.
And he fixed some of the major flaws, and he said that that Terradome should be more reliably completable, like every time.
Yeah.
You should be able to complete it every time.
Now with less bugs.
Yes.
And you know, you dropped a little thing in there about the remastering, just a plug for coming up later in the episode. We chat real quickly with Al about some of those remasters too. So stay tuned for that. Now, there was also a mention about interior cutscenes, but
also from Gozer as well. He's been working on these for the remastering.
We've gotten, interior cutscenes before where you saw the transporter room for the Azure, but this is different because now you're going to be able to go from space and cut
to the interior
of the ship while you're actually still in space.
Yeah.
And that's where the new technology is coming in.
And one of the greatest things about that is that that's something that up until very recently we were told couldn't happen because you couldn't be on both your bridge and in space at the same time. You couldn't exist in those two realms at the same time in the engine. But somehow Gozer or some other genius at Cryptic has figured out a way to hack it. So now upcoming in, I believe it's in the Doomsday mission, when this gets revamped, we're going to have a cutscene where you're on your ship, you are your ship, and then you get a cutscene on the interior.
Woo!
So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that comes off.
That's going to be great for storytelling. And then one last little thing that hit over the week was you now have, just in this last patch, a craftable Delta Flyer. And you can do like a new daily shuttle mission to go get craftable
apparently it's
supplies.
kind of tedious, but if you're into crafting, you're into tedium. So it's right up your alley.
Well, you know what it is? It's like it's a go scan and collect kind of thing.
And you have to do it in your shuttle.
I just got a new Class F TOS shuttle.
Right.
I do kind of...
Might as well take it for a spin.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. And I'd be really curious to know what you guys say. So if you've gone out there and tried to craft your first Delta Flyer, we haven't gotten a chance to do it yet. Send us in your thoughts, stoked@jupiterbroadcasting.com, or just leave a comment wherever you're watching this video, and we'd like to hear how the crafting goes.
So since we're up here in your face asking for all of your feedback, I want to remind everybody to stay tuned for our community feedback segment this time. We do have some important news to share with you about upcoming shows.
Yeah.
But before that, why don't we get into this talk with Al Rivera?
Let's do it.
Already teased it twice. Let's let him talk.
Let's go meet Al. Welcome to the interview segment. Now, you see these headphones here, and, well, that means we've got somebody on the line.
Yep.
And we're excited because we got Al Rivera on the line, the lead designer of Star Trek Online. Welcome to the show, Al.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Good.
Now, Al, you've joined us once before for a guest math segment, which we will be doing again later in the same episode.
All right.
So stay tuned for that. But I figured we would take an opportunity to actually kind of get to know you. I mean, we've never done an actual interview with you. How do you feel about that?
For shame.
I feel left out. Frankly, I feel heartbroken.
Well, let's get you into the club here. I want to know straight up front, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into the game industry? Is this something that you've always wanted to do, or is it something you stumbled into? What's your educational background, all that stuff?
Yeah, I actually was, I guess you more or less say I stumbled into it. I actually have I was going for biochemistry. So I have a degree in biochemistry, and I was in Florida, and this was right before the dot-com boom, and I was all set to be a chemist, and a friend of mine dropped out and moved out to California and became a producer at Sega Soft, and all my friends were not making any money in chemistry. And it was getting very frustrating to even think about the job market in that industry. So I said, all right, well, I'll give it a shot. I'll come out to California, lots of chemistry industry out here, and see where that takes me. I went ahead and I ended up joining Sega.com and became a producer at first, and or assistant producer, and kind of fell in love with design at that point.
Very cool.
So I've been in the
you actually have a true science background, so the shirt is appropriate.
Yeah. Now, you must be, with rocking the Star Trek shirt, you must be a longtime Star Trek fan, no?
I'm an epic Star Trek fan. I'll have to say I'm probably the biggest fan in the company.
Wow.
Really?
That is quite the claim.
Would you be willing to throw down maybe your favorite Star Trek episode? Does anything jump to mind?
Yeah, probably have to say Sacrifice of Angels.
Okay. Now, can I ask you why?
Oh, I'm a huge Deep Space Nine fan.
Yeah.
That's my absolute favorite series. And I mean, there's a lot of favorite episodes I have throughout all the series, but just it's just an amazingly intense episode with all the armies coming together, all the sides, and it's just the epic war.
Yes.
It's just a fantastic episode. A lot of drama. Deep Space Nine really changed Star Trek for me, I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it actually did for a lot of modern Star Trek fans as well.
It's definitely a popular one in our chat room. Our chat room is loving your answer. And
yeah.
We've noticed, we were just talking before the show, that Deep Space Nine seems to be one of the the largest popular one. So that's good on you.
Now, actually, I've got a whole list of questions here, but you've made me want to skip ahead a little bit.
Right.
Now, we know that when Craig Zankovich was previous a producer on the game, that he was really obsessed with trying to get Horta into the game, which we've seen.
We've seen that.
And we know that Stahl has been obsessed with trying to get V'ger into the game. So I want to know, Al, is there something out there that you are just obsessed with trying to get represented in the game that maybe a long ways down the road at this point due to technical limitations, but is there anything that you crave?
Well, there's been a couple things. Craving, I don't know. I certainly really... Tribbles was what I really wanted to get in the game. That was my little side pet project, and so I was really happy to get that in there.
Good man.
And right now, things that I really want to get in, Starbases is something I really want to get in.
Oh, yeah.
Not exactly maybe the IP, super IP thing you're looking for. IP, I really wanted to get... I'm with Stahl. I want to get V'ger in there. I want to get What Happened to Enterprise B. Where's that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That would be great. I would love to see some of those unanswered Trek questions.
And the C as well. Maybe some of the voyages of the C.
And what happened to C after it went back in time to the Romulans and the origin of Sela, right? Yeah. So, and I also really want to touch upon the giant whale space probe. Where's that going?
What's that about? Yeah, where's that from? So that kind of has me thinking. I mean, is there any existing content in game that you could directly claim some credit for, like, at least massaging or meddling, or maybe even creation? Anything that kind of jumps out?
The City on the Edge of Never was mine. Was my initial idea. So that was
well done. That's definitely a fan favorite.
The Doomsday Machine was something that I started. Although most of the details of the story was all the details of the stories are written by our writers and our content guys.
Well, then it's appropriate that the Doomsday Machine is behind us right now.
Right.
And it's actually very appropriate because we're actually I'm working with Gozer right now, digitally remastering that episode.
That was the other inspiration. Yeah, it was meticulously picked because of that.
So we just watched that on Friday. Every Friday we watch an episode of Star Trek. So we watch Doomsday Machine on Friday.
Love that. Awesome. Yeah. That is perfect. Well,
you guys should live stream that if you can.
Yeah.
You get so many people watching along with you.
They probably aren't allowed to shoot the screen because of copyright issues.
Right, that's true.
All right, should we fire another question over now?
Yeah, I have one big question for you, and this one might require a little bit of brain power. We're getting into some of the tough stuff here, so I want to ask you, if you had infinite resources and time, I know that perfect world,
if he was
right?
Q.
Is there any specific feature, you mentioned Starbases earlier, would that be the one that you would want to put into STO right now? And would that be fleet-controlled Starbases?
Oh, like if he could snap his fingers and have it in there?
Mm-hmm.
If I could do a little Q snap, I certainly... there's a lot of things I would expand upon the game, most of them more or less minutia, but I'd love to have a true Starbase control, territory control over the neutral zone. Guild base, where you'd be building your own ships, your own fleets, and sending out fleets against others, against the Klingons.
Nice.
Would be great.
I know that our audience would love to see that as well. That's actually been mentioned since before release, that it's something eventually that I think Zankovich used to talk about it in one of our previous interviews with him. So
I think it's a perfectly feasible thing that could happen in the game within a year or two. I think it's perfectly reasonable that it might happen.
So, nice. Al, can I ask you a question that's kind of related to the big news this week? That's the new TOS interior pack and uniforms and all that. In Stahl's engineering report, he put a comment in there that working on new interior tech. Was that just for the TOS interiors, or is that alluding to something maybe more?
I'll try to see if I can channel what he was trying to say. Definitely, as I mentioned before, interiors are probably going to change the way they are, the way ship interiors are. Ship interiors are too big. It's really tough to get the right camera angle in an interior that's too small. So actually making it real size is really challenging, right? To make it really feel real, especially if you're ever going to have an away team inside there, it just causes you have a lot of problem.
Right.
So the TOS pack allowed us to experiment with some new technology with the cameras and changing the size, making it feel a little bit better. We also want to allow people what everyone wants to do. They want to have missions on their interiors, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But that's a huge challenge because I don't know, there's a dozen different layouts right now, and if we were to do a map, that means we'd have to do 12 missions. what it is. We'd have to duplicate it 12 times.
Yes.
It's not sustainable. We just can't do that.
Is there any way to build it so that players could hook up I know like there's just recently a blog post that says, you know, they kind of went through the technical limitations of why it's hard to like just hook stuff up to the doors and things like that don't already have something. But has there been any conversation about eventually allowing players to extend that interior through the Foundry? So maybe if I don't want to create a mission per se for people to play, I just want to kind of add to my fort in a way. Has that ever been kind of discussed?
Build a treehouse.
Yeah.
We certainly talked about using the Foundry as a springboard for players modifying their own ship interior or even eventually modifying their own starbase interiors.
Yeah.
So what exactly it's going to mean, I still don't really have the best answer for you. The goal would be to let people customize it, and the goal would be to let us have missions inside there. Those may be conflicting goals. So we're working on that, and I don't have a good answer, but that's what we're trying to do.
But it's on the radar at some extent. It sounds like, so that's good.
Well, would it be safe to summarize then that this new ship interior tech that he was referring to is an attempt to try and get missions on board, and what you can do to bridge the gap between customization and content?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to make happen.
Okay, that's great. I would love to see that.
Any other questions you want to?
Yeah, you know, actually, really quick, you mentioned earlier when I asked you the big question, if you could put anything, you said minutia. Now, do you have anything off the top of your head that you could mention that you would like to see fixed or tweaked? That's just minutia.
Sure. Well, one thing I want to do is I'd love to split ground and space skills to two separate skill pools.
So
would I.
Yeah, that would be probably one of the top on our list there.
Yeah, so I really like to do that. When we balance it, I have to balance it assuming that people have split their skills equally, and in the end, people start piling all their skills into space later on, and they think ground is too hard. So I'd love to split those pools up. Honestly, I'd really like to give skills in general a revamp, make them a little more easier to understand. I think it's probably one of the harder learning curves for new players to come and understand what their skill points are doing.
Yeah,
that might be a little bit more of a lofty goal, but it certainly would be a nice thing to do. And one thing we are really considering that I'd like to get in is more traditional MMO persistent type zones. So
like open kind of social areas.
Yeah, like maybe you go to Vulcan and there's just open zones there, and you can just do found missions with other people, and I don't know, you go killing Celicats or something.
That'd be great. Can I ask you sort of shifting gears maybe from some of the Star Trek Online stuff, and let's talk about, I noticed in the background there that you've got a whole heck ton of action figures. I'd love to know the backstory on that.
You know, actually the only one I can identify is RoboCop.
RoboCop, let's see.
Oh, but there's Ash up on the
there's
top
Ash.
shelf.
There's quite a few Spawn action figures. When I first came out here to California, and I was completely enamored with the Bay Area and just how much technology was everywhere. The big thing at the time, I think Todd McFarlane had just started releasing his Spawn action figures, and so when I started working at Sega Soft, everyone would go to when we go to lunch, we'd always go to Toys R Us and buy the latest action figures. So so I picked up a couple and just got completely addicted with it, and that's probably half of them. The other half are in the closet.
Whoa!
So there's a lot of Spawn action figures out there. There's some Matrix. There's Alien versus Predator. When I met my wife, she has a huge Pez and Tick and X-Files collection.
The
Tick.
Tick
goes up there.
Yes. Yes. I love the Tick.
So at the office is all the Star Trek
sure.
ships, and so I just started, and it got a little out of hand, but it's in the den. It looks good.
It's in your man cave.
Yeah, the man cave. Yeah, I've got in my man cave I've got a collection of Star Trek ships.
Like 13 of them.
Yeah. All of the Star Trek ships that you could get that they've made into big toys that don't cost like $200 now on Amazon.
Yeah.
Some of them are still way too expensive because they're now so limited. Yeah, I don't have the Voyager one.
Yeah, I have those at the office. I got the Voyager one. I picked it up and it was like $200.
Yes, exactly. That's been my problem.
The one I still want is the big DS9 set.
Yeah, DS9, and there's also a Borg Cube out there, and also the Defiant. I don't have the Defiant toy. I'd love to get my hands on that.
I got the Defiant on eBay. I got it at a steal at like $40 or something.
That is a steal.
Lucky.
I just found bidding in it, so I said, all right, fine, I'll try it, and I got it for $40. So
well done, sir. Now, any other questions on the
Yeah, one more STO question just before we let you go here.
Right.
Al, can you give us any update on poker?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Dang.
Good answer.
I want Poker Fridays. All right.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. We want to get more mini games in STO, but probably the bigger focus are more things like the how we're doing spatial anomalies. We want to get more of those, so that way we can do. It would have been a lot more interesting. We had a really cool mini game, say for instance for the last Romulan series when you had to, go. Get the satellite to decouple from you. We would love to have a lot more of those kind of mini games in there.
Sure.
So poker, yeah, it'll get in there. Right now, other mini games are probably what we're going to be focused on first.
Well, maybe can you give us kind of a high-level technical explanation? Some people have just said, can't you just import the poker mechanics from something else? I mean, it's just poker, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Everybody knows how poker works.
It's like a CSV file. You just import it. Like it's just right out of Excel, right, Al?
Yeah, it's just copy and paste.
But aside from the art assets, that is something that would have to be coded basically into your engine from the ground up. Is that right?
It's UI, it's the interface. I mean, Dabo was not a small task to do, right?
I believe it.
It really. I mean, you're gonna need a UI. You're gonna need communication between all the players. I mean, UI assets and engineering assets is at a premium. We're really wanting to improve our UI, make it more Trek. We're working right now on completely revamping the ship store. So I think people are going to really love that, and so that takes a lot of UI resources to do that. So resources are limited. We're not. It's not like 200 people working on this project. We have to pick our battles. So.
Right. All right, Al. Well, thanks for coming on to the Getting to Know You segment. Now, everybody stay tuned because Al's also going to join the J-Man for a great math segment. And that's coming up next, J-Man.
Right.
Let's get math.
Okay, here we go. It's math time again, everybody. And joining me once more is Cryptic's Al Rivera, a.k.a. Captaingeko, lead designer. Welcome back to math.
Hello, Jupiter.
Now, you had a few things that you wanted to cover from your previous segment before we get into today's subject matter. You want to go ahead and jump into that?
Sure. It's just a little minor clarification as I was watching the show. When we talked about the example of, the difference between magnitude and damage resistance, there was, I think a couple times it was said that even at low values, that the values actually diminish. If you, like say the example we said, it was 0.05, okay? And you want to say, hey, but even that even diminishes because it comes, 4.8%. That's not true. It's not really diminishing. 0.05 is not, it's a value. I think it might have been clearer if we would have said armor instead of actual damage resistance magnitude.
Oh, okay.
It's just a value of armor of 0.05. If you put in a value of 0.05, the non-diminished value is 4.8%. The diminished value is 4.8%.
I see.
So small values don't really diminish.
It's just that their actual displayed value is different than their magnitude.
Right.
Okay. Great.
So just wanted to clarify that it doesn't to show that it is a curve and it's pretty generous in the beginning.
And just as further clarification, if folks were actually using the spreadsheet that was provided, they would have seen that for themselves, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. Speaking of spreadsheets, we got a whole new one for everybody to chew on today. And today we're going to be talking about accuracy and how it is affected by defense. So basically kind of an accuracy versus defense discussion. And we're also going to be talking a little bit about the overflow factor of accuracy and how that factors into crit severity and crit chance. So why don't we go ahead and get started here. Al, is there some way that we can wrap this all up in a quick summary and then start explaining that?
Sure. Well, I'll try. Players in the game, if you're familiar, you can gain an accuracy and you can gain a defense value. And I'm assuming most people just assume that it's a straight up addition subtraction, but that's really not what's going on there.
Now, just to clarify, though, when they are equal values, though, under this current system, they still directly cancel one another out.
Yes.
It's just when you get to the extremes of when they're very different from one another that we start playing with some complicated mathoritms.
Yes. So it's at the base, everybody, if there are no values involved, everybody has a 100% chance to hit anything. And yes, to answer your original question, the values completely cancel each other out. So So if you have the same accuracy that your target has in defense, then
you still have a 100% chance.
100% chance.
Now, when you exceed that 100% chance, is that immediately where it starts building into a crit overflow?
Right. So if you refer to the spreadsheet there, if your actually overflows over 100%, then we start giving you a bonus in crit chance and a bonus in crit severity. And that's in the overflow, not in your actual accuracy, but in the accuracy overflow.
This factors in pretty heavily on how some people might want to itemize their ships. When it comes down to it, do you think that it would be encouraged then to just focus on accuracy since you get a spillover benefit anyway? Or as itemization goes, do you get a bigger bang for your buck if you focus on critical severity and critical chance?
Yes, that's a challenging question to answer. When fighting critters, critters don't probably put a lot of points in items, and so they're not really getting a lot of defense. I'll be straight up honest with you. I don't have a very clear answer for you as to when should you be focusing on crits items versus when you should be focusing on accuracy items. Mm-hmm. But they do directly stack together. They don't diminish. And if you're going to be fighting in PvP, you're probably going to want to put more into accuracy, because players are going to be a lot more savvy about adding to their defense than critters are.
Sure, of course.
Something else I'm assuming some people know, but most people know, but maybe they don't. The faster you go, the greater your defense. So hitting an escort or fighter they get a natural defense bonus from just moving that fast.
Now, I know we're not really focusing on crits in this segment, but does the overflow go back the other way? If you have a lot of critical chance on your ship, does it apply to accuracy at all? Or is you just going to miss a lot, but when you hit it, hit hard?
No, additional crit does not improve your accuracy, no.
Okay. What I want to talk about a little bit next, though, is the fact that even though equivalent values cancel each other out, once you start reaching these far ends of the scale, like if you don't have much accuracy and you're going against somebody with a lot of defense, that's where things really start to get complicated. And you gave me a great example in the email correspondence that we had earlier. Do you want to go over that? Maybe that would help kind of clarify the situation for folks.
Sure. First of all, there are two caps. There's the max to hit is, well, it's 100%, so that's technically a cap. And then there's but you always have a 25% chance to hit someone. That's just a hard cap that hits in there.
No matter how high their defense is and how low your accuracy is.
You always have a 25% chance to be hit. If you had a defense of 0.6, foes would have a 62.5% chance to hit you. If your foe has an accuracy of 0.5, then their chance to hit you would improve to 90%, 90.9%. However, if you have a defense of 3, foes would have a 25% chance to hit you. If your foe had the same accuracy of 0.05, their chance to hit you would only improve to 28%. So you can see how the buffer of defense has a greater effect than if you just have a little bit of defense. So what we did is, yes, it feels one-to-one in the small values, right? Because it's a pretty even. The formula doesn't really kick in. But if somebody has a really high defense, so you can keep pouring more and more into defense, but you're not really getting more defensible. But what you are doing is you're protecting yourself more from other people's accuracy bonuses.
Ah, that's a really good way to put it.
And we did that because if you had a straight linear system and somebody had a lot of defense, then a tiny little bit of accuracy would just cancel that out, right? But we wanted to do two things. We wanted people to continue to be able to add to defense and it means something, and we wanted people to continue to add to accuracy and it means something too, even if you weren't fighting somebody who didn't have a high defense, because so we gave you that's when we gave you the crit bonus as well.
Yeah, so it allows everybody, no matter how they've itemized themselves, to still reap a benefit regardless of the enemies that they're going against.
Yes.
Now, I actually want to cover that a little bit. Are you able to tell us, maybe this is too much of looking behind the curtain, but do critters have their own defense skills, and do different classes of critters have more invested, different races maybe even? Are there any obvious disparities?
They use the same form. Everyone uses the same formulas. There are no real direct disparities that I can think of. We haven't grossly added any high defense to someone. It's certainly a factor of their ships. So, like say the Romulans, they mostly use escorts.
Right.
So they're a little harder to hit because simply they just move faster. If they're using any particular skills, if they're using attack patterns, like attack, they're going to be moving faster and thus they're gaining more defense. So it's not necessarily directly related specifically to the fact that, hey, we give Romulans more defense than we give Borg. If something moves faster, if something is using a particular power that adds to defense, then they'll gain some. But we don't, for instance, we don't give critters, I say, a lot of points in a skill that gives them high defense value. So I can't remember the skill right now that adds.
And we all thank you for that.
Yeah. Because you know what, missing is not fun, right? It's really not. So I'd rather give them a higher damage resistance than give them a high defense. So, right. But in PvP, you know, gloves are off.
So Al, we've covered a lot of pretty high-level math on this, but I'm wondering, for those of us that haven't been able to follow along, is there some way to summarize like a best point where there might be a best bang for your buck as far as investing in accuracy specifically?
Where it becomes more optimal, in this system, it's much more subjective than, say, in the damage resistance system, where in the damage resistance system you had it was only affecting you, and so there was a sweet spot at which point, hey, the inflection, you know, the slope of the damage resistance was starting to go less than 1, so you're probably getting a diminishing bonus. But in this case, it's really depending upon the target that you're fighting. So you're already at base 100% chance to hit. So you don't need any accuracy until you hit somebody who has some defense. So depending on who you're fighting is depending on how much accuracy you're going to need to cancel them out. At some point, yes, if you have someone with a really, really high defense, you're going to need a really, really high accuracy. So there is no sweet spot. It's really who you're fighting. Probably, I would say, if you're focusing on PvP, you're going to need a lot more accuracy because it is easy to get. You know, people got the Aegis set out there, and they've got a lot of defensive bonuses, and they're going to be a lot harder to hit than critters. If you're fighting critters, if you're just going to do PvE, I probably would focus more on crit bonuses than direct accuracy.
All right. Well, I think that's a great summary. Al, I want to thank you again for laying all this math right in our faces, and I'll take a closer look at the spreadsheet. I encourage everybody else to as well, and hopefully we'll get you back on the show again. People have been loving these math segments with you, so I want to thank you again for coming on and sharing all this behind-the-scenes math with us.
That's my pleasure. I enjoy it too.
And welcome to Community Feedback. We've got sort of an announcement to make and then also a follow-up question. So the first part is we're taking next week off.
Say what?
I know, J-Man.
I know, it's all my fault, actually. I'm just too busy.
Well, that technically is true, and I could use a day off. So we won't be live on April 2nd, which means there won't be an episode out on April 5th. But what we're going to do is we're going to use that time effectively. So hopefully, during that downtime, the Foundry will have hit holodeck.
In fact, it may have already hit by the time you're watching this episode.
That's what we're hoping, yeah. But then that gives people time to get their missions going again and for people to find the ones that are in a good state.
Yes.
So we're kind of hoping you can help us out with that last part there. As the Foundry gets ported over and the missions start coming back, if you find really great ones that you think we should feature in the next episode of Stoked, email us, stoked@jupiterbroadcasting.com. Then join us live on the 9th at jblive.tv at 11 a.m. Pacific for the playthrough of the mission that the community selects.
The concept right now, and realize that's 2 weeks from now, so it might change, but the concept at this time is to dedicate that entire episode to the Foundry. Now that it's landed on holodeck, we may have... Well, let's just say I'm going to try to work out some special treats for the episode.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I think we can also see, now that it's going to be on holodeck, we can also start to make some long-term plans about how we're going to incorporate more aspects of the Foundry in the show, so stay tuned for information about that as well. All right, everyone. Oh, I almost forgot. You know, we do Stoked, like we just mentioned, live, and there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make it into the show.
Oh, God.
And we've set
Don't get me started.
I know, right? Well, there's just a ton of show. And some of the best moments, like 2 weeks ago, right before the show, my microphone stand literally exploded.
Yep.
Like, parts everywhere. That so much doesn't show up, but you do see, like, the spring shootout and stuff like that. And we've set up a new YouTube channel of, like, some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that doesn't make it into the episode. And you can go over to youtube.com/Jupiter Backstage.
Jupiter Backstage.
Yeah.
All one word.
I'll try to remember to throw a link in the show notes.
Sure.
Too. All right, everyone. Well, that wraps up this week's episode of Stoked, and we'll see you right back here in 2 weeks. when does the lightsaber come to the C-store? Our chat room is so funny with the Star Wars jokes. They're just taking your lead, Jay. All right.
How about a light bat lift?
Yeah, there you go. That would be great. A light...
Like a plasma fire along the edge. Yeah.
All right, we're working on it.
All right, cool. And we'll see you right back here in 2 weeks.
I was wondering if you were going to get that last part right.
Yeah, I know.